Good morning. Looks like it's time to get started again. Let's transition over. And there. Okay, perfect. All right, so we're back into going for the game dev with Rust, the BR Code GG game. So there's been a few changes over the weekend because I did get several hours to sort of work on it, and I also got to consult with some people who actually make games for a living, and they gave me some tips of where to put stuff and what to do with it. Even though they've not worked on a problem like this one before, it's really kind of interesting to see their takes on it and how their experience actually making games for a living is just like translates pretty neatly over to new things. And good morning, Miguel. So what, let's see if it works right now, because I can't remember if it was currently broken or not. Yeah, it definitely works. So the reason why they're moving so slowly now is that they're actually going out and asking external code what they're supposed to be doing, which is the exact same thing as before: move down and to the right. Good morning, Stacking and Hork71. So I've got it actually talking to external code now. Yes, I did indeed get some good pointers. So the first pointer was to not use threads. So my initial idea was that I was going to keep the bot live and running, and so I would just send to standard in. But it turns out that on the Linux machines, it's a little bit more difficult than the effort warrants to be able to send to standard in for a running thing. And I can't just like pipe to a file easily and have it be read. There's a few more things that would have to be done, and it just would end up being not necessarily all that helpful. So instead, I am currently just running it, and then in bot, so we can see what I'm doing here is when we create the bot, we're no longer creating a thread here. And I can't remember, was I started on a thread on Friday, or did I start on that on Saturday and then also abandon it on Saturday? I can't remember. But instead, we're going to go down to update. And we're going to have, okay, we serialize all the data. So we serialize this bot's data right here into like a JSON string, a stringified JSON. Then we get we ask the bot, we run the bot, pass it the serialized state, and then that will give us, just right now, a new point location. Then I set the new location to that, and I tell it to keep into the arena. So I'm thinking, because it moves so slow with only 5 bots, I wasn't sure how fast it was going to be, even though it's running external programs synchronously, that I probably want to make this more of a grid-based game, so it moves just a little bit faster because it's not moving pixels, but moving entire grids and squares. In my serialized data, I'm using Serday JSON to a typed string. So the result, Serday JSON to string, and I can't remember where that, oh no, this is, yeah, so this is just taking, okay, result, return Serday JSON to string. It's kind of handles it on its own, which is perfectly fine. Run bot is the interesting one, where we're doing this command and saying, okay, run node test bot. And so later on, I might be able to get scripts that like detect what kind of language it is. But that will come in the future, and I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I did find that I have to wrap the JSON in a string, otherwise it doesn't come in properly. But the bot, which I have right here, basically takes in and parses that JSON, creates its own location, increments it by a random amount, and then goes with that. And I was playing with save to like a file save so that I could see what the proper JSON output that was coming in, and I think, yep, that's not it anymore. It got overridden with meow. Of course it did. Let's see what else. I'm not really using this anymore, so I could probably delete it, but I'm keeping it around just in case I want it, and I'll definitely be deleting it before the end. Lots of new tests. I have been keeping up on the test-driven development for this, so everything, even the run bot, where I'm actually using this test bot and saying, hey, if I give you this, like what it's going to do. So I'm thinking what I can do is a bot, like a little test bot for each type of movement that I want to do. So maybe for the first one, it just stands still on the screen. The next one would move, like move right, then move down. I could test all of the functionality through that way. Okay, so there's that. I have in bot move, this is where I'm telling it where to go. I'm not actually, don't think I'm using bot move anymore. Yeah, so bot move is not used. I was planning on using this initially for like telling Serde JSON where it's coming from, but I just set it to be a point for right now. This might be later reused to basically instruct, here's the instructions from the bot. Yeah, I guess it might be an integration test. It's sort of in here with the rest of the tests. So yeah, I think so. It's testing the function for run bot. But yeah, that also hits a lot of other functions too. So I guess technically, yes, it would be more of a integration test. And I don't really think I've changed anything in main besides I went back and forth between 1 and 5 bots, just sort of play around with how things were working, especially when I was getting it really slow and I had to make sure that it was actually running properly. We could see what happens if I put on like 25 bots. I haven't tried this yet. Oh, that was just opening up code again. I did not upgrade everything to 2018 edition. Significantly slower when it's trying to run these. It is running them. What I think is interesting is that we see them all moving at once. But I guess that kind of makes sense. We're doing this in one update, so we're figuring out where they're all going to be, and then we're displaying it. I know. It's slightly less than 1 minute. Come on, we can get like 3 frames per minute. And this is the reason why it's going to be required for us to make this like a behind the scenes background. Oh man, it takes it forever to quit too. Running the bots concurrently would help the performance. I guess like what I'm worried about gameplay wise is if I run them concurrently, is there a way for me to accidentally give precedence to one bot over the other? So basically one bot gets to take 2 or 3 turns before the other bots really get their chance. I'm not sure if I'm not I guess like my knowledge of concurrent running isn't high enough to know whether or not that's going to be a problem. I do know that to be the most fair, it will be to do it concurrently like this. The other side of things is I'm curious to know how much faster it would be if it's not also drawing to the screen, because that's another thing is I'm not going to be doing that. Instead, all I'm going to do is just print out to a file, like save into memory. Here's what everything is gonna. Here's all the turns that have happened, and then write that out to a file at the very end, or I guess write it to a database at the very end. So, and at the beginning, I'm thinking we're definitely, for like instant feedback for people writing the bots, we're gonna want to release the we're gonna write instructions for how to like get this working on your local system. So something like the ability to drop a bot in the same directory as the file, and then run the entire command and see, okay, how is it working? Like let's get instant feedback. Is it moving around or not? And then there could be, these test bots could be loadable in at that point in time, and say like, okay, load the test bots and let's practice against them. I think that'll be later, but that's something to definitely keep in mind. So with those being said, not rendering. Yes, not rendering will help a lot, I'm sure. What's the next thing that I wanted to do? Also, yep. I think because we have the bot and it's loading in, I think what I wanted to do was make it so that I can run the test bots properly and differentiate between them. One interesting problem with this is that when I'm creating a bot, I almost have to like flag this and say, hey, this is going to be a test bot, which can be in like a test bot folder. But how am I going to differentiate? Oh, this is the other bots. The real bots are going to be URLs from GitHub. We need to pull those down and do them. I'm almost thinking that when I instantiate the bot, it takes in like the type of bot, whether or not it's a test, and also the location of the bot, which will, if it's a test, then it will just be a file path location. And if it's a not test, if it's like a real bot, it'll take in a git URL. So that's what I'm thinking of doing right now. So that means then in this test, let's sort of change this around to see how we would want it to be. Also, apparently I've made some changes to this that haven't been sent up. So let's add those up. So bots move down and right on the screen. So I'll send that up. I've also been, I also worked a little tiny bit on a schedule page for the stream, since I'm thinking I want to replace that thanks for watching with something that can update from a database or of some kind. So I've been working on that, and I ran into a bug in an open source, the Mavo project that I was working on. So I submitted an issue for that. I didn't get a chance to look into it myself. I'm thinking about asking them if they have any sort of suggestions where to look, and if they do, then maybe we could look at that on stream as we sort of like work on those as well. But we're coming up on going to be an interesting time of year. The sort of December month is very it's hard to schedule things because, oh, I'm going to be gone these random days. Okay, so we have we have move bot. That we haven't moved the bot around yet. I'm almost thinking that maybe even before this, I want a grid system. If I do a grid system, then instead of allowing the bots to choose, I move 1 pixel down, I can say, I move down like that. I move like 1 down and to the right. I move 1 down. And then that would be the full moves, and it could feel a little bit faster and also make collision detection a little bit easier, because I could just check, is the bot in the same space as a bullet? If so, you're hit. And that can sort of, it can make it almost like a board game. So if I wanted to do that, I'm thinking that it won't be bot, it will be probably the game of some kind is going to need to draw the grids out. And we could start with like 100 by 100, or maybe even like 25 by 25. So we'll need to divide the width by how big we want it to be. And then we'll figure that out. Like then we'll draw it out, and the bots can just be in a coordinate system. So let's try that. I'm thinking we have numbots to create. We have game event. In lib, we have this main state here. We're probably going to keep the grids, like the number of grids. Yeah, the number of grids will go in here. And then when we draw it out, it'll have to like draw that physically. And I'll probably put in the IDs for them too right away, like first. Or some kind of like click or something else of that. So let's do main state new. If we pass in all of these things, and these are like the width and the height and the number of bots. We also want the grid size. So let's say 25. I'm not really sure if I want this to be floating point numbers, but everything else is, and so I know the math is going to get a little bit weird if I do that. Okay, so 25 of course makes it error out because it's not expecting that, and at the very end we're going to get assert equal, and it's going to be main state dot number, like grid width, I think. Do I want this to be a square? Yeah, I think this is gonna be like more of a box. So it's gonna be 25 right, 25 down. So grid size is gonna be 25.0. Okay, it took a while for it to register the error, so I was actually surprised at that. All right, so grid size. In main state, we're going to take in pub. I actually don't know if it needs to be public. Grid size, it's going to be F32. And in new, we're going to take in grid size, which is an F32. And we're gonna just put in here grid size. The only reason that it's a float right now is, ooh, I just noticed out of the corner of my eye that the code changed. I think that's the new 2018 version with code, where it'll actually register and use Rust FMT to reformat it. It's nice. I like it. I think it does. Either that or something else that I've installed recently is doing that for me. Okay, so the reason why it's a grid size, it's an F32 right now, is because everything else is an F32. I am not convinced that this is the right move. having this as an integer might be better. And then we'll just convert these to integers. Floating point math is odd sometimes because the CPUs just can't handle those decimal points. So that's what I'm thinking. I don't know. I guess I'm going to try it with an F32 first, just to make sure it matches up with everything else. But if you all have any other ideas, let me know, and I will add them to the experiment list. So then update is not going to be really updating anything. I think it's more of in draw, we're going to draw out the grid. So it's going to be X number of pixels by 25. Maybe that should be stored inside of, maybe that's what should be stored, is instead of just the grid size itself, it's how wide each thing needs to be, because then that will be important to pass down. So I don't have to do that math multiple times. So instead of grid size might be fine, but then here I'm going to give the grid number of boxes. So cells. So grid cells count. Oh yeah, no, there's nothing advanced about it because I'm still learning about game dev stuff myself. So I am very sure I'm going to make lots of mistakes in this area. All right, so if I have the grid cells count, so I want 25 of them. So if I take the width and I divide it by the grid cells count, that should give us the pixels that is actually the size in the width. And I'm starting to think that maybe this would be best as a point. So like, yeah, this might be best as a point. Do I not have point in this scope? Oh, I don't. Okay, so hold on. Use point. Good morning, Lask Live. Yes, I dropped out of CS after I took a class on Java, and a combination of that and the teacher, probably more of the teacher, and I just couldn't do it. I didn't think that I was meant to be a programmer after that. And it took many years to sort of like come full circle around and be like, oh yeah, I am programming. I just didn't realize it. Okay, so would be this should be probably cell size, grid cell size, grid cell size. It's going to be a point. That means that we now need to get let grid cell size is going to be equal to the width divided by the grid cells count. Now, will this shouldn't give ownership doing math like this. What are my thoughts on people in the industry with degrees and without? Right now is probably the best time not to have a degree. It's certainly not as necessary as it used to be, but it also depends upon location in the world. In America, it's a lot easier to get by without a degree anymore because everybody just knows how expensive college is right now. I think the biggest thing, and if you want to become a programmer in real life, find like 5 companies that you would like to work for. Reach out to employees at them on like LinkedIn or any kind of like, just find them in some way, and then ask them to, if you could do an informational interview with them. And that's an interview where you're interviewing them and you're asking questions like, if I wanted to work at a company like yours, and these are my current skills, what would you do if you were me in order to get the position that you have right now? And that way you can get some advice from people that are actually in the companies you want to target. Then that will tell you exactly what to go for. It's possible that they'll say stay with it, but that's why I also suggest 5 times. You can get like sort of an average across them. So that's my suggestion. That's what I always told my students. Let's see, grid cell size, width divided by grid cell count. So if I have that, then you can now be grid cell size and then down here you're upset because you're grid cell size. And out of curiosity, I'm gonna see whether or not what 55 divided by 25 really is. And because I try not to do too much math on my own, I'm going to use my calculator. So 55 divided by 25. I don't actually know if it's using floating point numbers in this calculator. 2.2 is what this is. So we want that to be that. Yeah, also, people in this industry are really bad at responding. So please don't take it the wrong way, but also please get used to being rejected via no communication back. It really sucks, but people do that all the time. Gareth, good morning. Oh, that sucks. It's even worse if your professor isn't answering emails. That's usually when I would just show up at their office. All right, what are you upset about? Expected struct point. Oh, right, because this is going to be a point, because it's really going to be grid cell size X is going to be the width of this. So the grid cell size X ways, and then Y's ways is going to be, okay, so let grid cell size Y equals, and it's going to be now height divided by grid cells count. And we're going to make this a point. What is it? It's grid cell size. It's going to be a point new grid cell. I don't know why VS Code, when it's auto-completing in like one of these templates that get put in, doesn't auto-complete for me. That kind of sucks. Grid cell size Y. Okay, so that gives me that. Now let's go down, and this will be main state grid cell size. Oh, I think I can do this now. Let grid cell size equals point new, and this is going to be 2.2 for that side, and let's try 42 divided by 25. That'll be 1.68. 1.68. And I want to now take main state grid cell size, which is going to be a point, and compare that to grid cell size. And I think that'll work. Well, I'm glad you were able to enjoy working on coding still, Lask. That's actually one of the most important things, is not to lose that. All right, so that reminds me, I kind of did a bunch of stuff to point. So we can go take a look at that in a little bit. Let's run these tests and see whether or not this this works. Field is never used. Well, okay, it's yes, I know it's never used. You'll have to trust me. Cargo test. Ooh, this function takes 4 parameters, but 3 were supplied. So, oh, this is in main RS. So now we need. I keep on forgetting that in the test it compiles and runs main too. So I will need to put in here, so let grid cells equals, let's just do the 25 for right now. It's going to be a 25.0.0, and we'll put that in here, grid cells. Okay, I'm not sure I'm happy with that format. That's a little bit weird. Catford, good morning. Yes, I've been thinking about going into the IntelliJ Rust side of things, because it's been like questionable with it's been a little bit more questionable with VS Code recently. And the principle of the game, the idea is that people are going to put in, like, write their bots on their own. And right now, the most basic bot I have is this JS file, which just tells it to move, like, it gets in a location in JSON and moves 1 down and to the right, and then the game will put a bunch of them in there and let them all run until one is left standing. And so it's going to be a battle royale code game. All right, so in new bot, what did I do wrong here? So in new bot, left is 25 and right is 5. So this must be a test I broke before and hadn't run test yet. So this is new bot. Oh, the bot radius. Yeah, the bot radius is something that's set manually right now. So right now as the test, it's only kind of in here for me to remember when it gets changed, I guess. Okay, serialized state, that's failing. What happened there? Oh, right, because it's gonna be the same thing here. So in serialized state, the radius is 25. I haven't figured out how to, like, properly test this without manually hard coding some data in. And run bot standard out. This is, okay, so in run bot, we have left and right. And of course, they're not exactly the same. They're close, but they're off by 2. This might change with the other changes. So let's try this. Also, I think I made the bots change by like a random amount. I think that might be the problem, is they're no longer assuming a random amount. So here, expected point. Yeah, I'm just moving it by 1 pixel, but if we go into the actual bot.js, it's going by like some random amount, which is not good for testing. So let's actually change this back to 1. Later on, we'll probably use grid cells, so we'll just like move 1 position up. I like VS Code, the view look of it. I sometimes have problems finding things in, like finding where the panes are and where code is in IntelliJ. But it's been a while since I've used those products, so I might try it again to see how it is. Okay, so tests are working. That means that this lib, the change we made, is good, and the calculations were right. So what that means now is to draw that out. And because we have the width and a height in these point in this grid cell size, when we do the draw here, I want to put a line down from top to bottom, and just create an actual grid. So let's do that here. I'm thinking not draw the bots right away. We're not going to worry about that. We want to draw the grid, so that is going to be, I guess, for the loop. I wonder if it's like an infinite loop that would be better, or I guess we could do while, right? Yeah, while exists. So while, I don't think there's parentheses, and it'll just be something that gives a Boolean back. So while self dot, we need, oh, I guess we could calculate the number of times that this is going to happen. So we have the grid cell size. That's going to be this divided by. When we load this up, I think if we take this, and this is the number of them, right? So I can just go 1 through this. I guess I'm confusing myself with the math here. So if we have a grid system like this, then we move like 2.2, 2.2, 2.2, 2.2. That doesn't tell us the number of times we do that. We just keep on adding 2.2 until we get to the end. So like we have to keep track of like the starting position of that, or we multiply and do that. But I'm thinking keep track of the starting position and just move forward with that. So in draw, for this grid, we want, I guess we start with 0. So let's start grid equals 0. I guess dot 0 because we're F32 right now. Then I'm thinking we just loop until we break, or we loop until the start grid. That might be better. So while start grid is less than the width, right? So self dot width, which means you need to be mutable. So we're going to start and draw a line right where it is. So that's going to be, okay, draw a line from the top to bottom, right where this grid is, which means that we need to figure out how to draw a line. I don't think it should be that hard. We just do graphics dot line, I think. So we make graphics dot graphics.line draws a line of one or more connected segments, allocates a new mesh, draws it and throws it away, So if you're drawing many of them, you should create the mesh yourself. I am drawing many of them, but I don't want to draw them permanently. I just want them to sort of show as a test. So I'm not going to worry about performance right now. So this takes in context points. So it's going to be a vector slice of 0.2 and then the width. So I guess I just want 2 of them. Okay, so I want the top and the bottom. So we'll have line start. So let line start. And in reality, I guess this is going to be a vector, isn't it? So lines equals, going to do this as just a vector, and we're going to put in a point new. We're going to start with, I guess, the width over and then top 0. So this is going to be start grid, and y is 0.0, and then the next one is going to be the exact same, so start grid, and the height, self.height. Okay, so I get that, then I'm gonna now do our lines. So graphics.line. I don't know why it's not giving me autocomplete anymore. It just, oh right, it's not graphics dot, it's graphics line. It's gonna take in the context, so CTX. The points is lines, and the width is gonna be, let's just do them as 1 pixel and see what happens. I think I can, yeah, just question mark that. Expected nothing, found enum, standard result. Oh, and this needs to be a reference. Maybe? It's thinking. Nope, still not happy. All right, what do you need to be? Expected slice, found struct, standard vec. Expected type. Oh, okay. So these need to be points. So these need to be GEZ, algebra U2s. Yeah, it needs to be, oh, and good morning, Danny. It needs to be a slice, but they also need to be and algebra points. So I know you have a decent amount of time because you have to wait until our RLS finishes running, but I have tried a little bit of Vim with it. It was very interesting. It was not necessarily that much faster, but I might once again, like now that there's new RLS out, I might try it again, setting that up. It's a little bit of pain though. Okay, so expected type is a slice. Is this a vector slice or an array slice? I'm not completely sure. Expected type, GZ integral algebra, point, F32, and algebra U2. Yeah, RLS is slow, yeah. So this is not, well, we don't want this. I guess I could get a slice from this. I can't remember right off the top of my head how to do that, but there's more problems here. Meaning that if I have this vector of it, if you want to create a vector, well, so I have to slice. Like, for example, if I could do lines dot to slice. Oh, there isn't. To owned, to vector. Swap with slice and splice. I don't think those are what I want either. Isn't there something where I can do like a dot dot? Where I can do something like dot dot and like get out of it? I don't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, I can just create an array itself. So instead of vector, use this. Expected, oh, still compiling. Expected reference found array of 2 elements. All right, so now let's try referencing that. There is as slice. Okay, so, well, I was hoping that VS Code would catch it if I just write slice in, it would figure that out. All right, what are you upset about now? Expected slice found array of 2 elements. That's still not, it's closer. Closer to it, but also I think I can, off of these, so point new, can I directly run get gz point 2 and convert them in that way? All right, so if I do that, will you be any happier? Yes, you will. Okay, so finally, converted them to the appropriate type. So the problem, it wasn't very good with telling me. The problem was that it wanted the n algebra points, but I had created my own point system, so I have to convert. I actually have this function off of them, which I haven't like showed you guys yet what I did with point. This is just another yet helper function that I added to there. Okay, so a slice array. Yes, that was a dumb message. Okay, so we start the grid there. We're using it. Oh, it doesn't need to be mutable yet. So then we go through this, we draw the line, and then I think that we should start grid should plus equals to self dot grid cell size dot x. Like that's what we really want to do here. This should be the lines going across like that. I don't know if I made this look right or not. Let's actually test it and see what happens. So cargo run. Yeah, that error was pretty confusing. Hey, and we've got our grids. And that actually looks, or at least we've got lines. This actually looks pretty decently good. Though one of the things that this does make me think that maybe I misnamed it. This is this feels more like the Y's than the X's, even though it's going across like that. I can actually put this over here so everybody can see it. Yes, RLS is Well, yeah, RLS is from the Rust team, and IntelliJ kind of does their own. From what I understand, IntelliJ does that for most of their languages. Sort of like roll their own everything. So this is off of the width. I guess this kind of makes sense as the X, and then the Y is going to be going down like that. It feels a little bit weird. Let's sort of repeat this with so we're going to shadow and start the grid over again. So let mute start grid equals 0.0. Start this over again. We're going to do our while start grid is less than self.height. What are you all upset about now? Expected enum. Okay, fine. You're just being slow RLS again. So that lines equals, and this is going to be a new point, new, and so we're doing height this time. So this is going to be on the x-axis. So starting from 0.0. So 0.0 on the x and going down by start grid. And we need to get that, and we'll redo this again. Point new 0.0. Now it's going to be, so it's a cross, right? So we're going to start, oh, we already did 0.0. Start grid, right. Now it's going to be self.width and start grid. Get 0.2. Let lines is that. Then graphics, line, CTX. The points is going to be a reference to lines, and the width is going to be one pixel again. Oh, and then we need to increment. So start grid plus equals self dot grid cell size dot y. Graphics libraries, the ones that come with GGEZ, there are on GGEZ's website, there's some instructions for how to get it working on Linux or on all the systems. You do need to install some graphics libraries to use with it, but it kind of depends upon what system you're on, which libraries you end up installing, and GGEZ kind of takes care of that. All right, let's test this and see if we have a grid. I think we will. Yeah, we fully do. This is perfect. Oh, in my tiny preview window, it's having trouble displaying all of everything together. So depending upon where it's moving, it has that weird sort of old-fashioned TV problem of displaying the grid. But this is pretty cool. Amethyst is, I would say, and Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, Amethyst is a much more larger game engine. It's meant for a little bit more bigger, more complex games. GGEZ is sort of like Love 2D from the Lua language, and that's kind of why I like it. It's a really simple, lightweight game engine, and this game doesn't really need very much in engine-wise, so it's perfect for that. Okay, yeah. So if amethyst is too large for your liking, you might like GG-easy. It's pretty easy. It's very easy to use, but oh, it's okay. It's a data-driven game engine. I wouldn't say it's okay. So it's not that. Okay, that clearly I did not know that, but that's good to know. So in our last few minutes, I want to show you. I'll go ahead and exit out of here. What I did with points, because I thought that was pretty interesting. Basically, I kept on running into little things that was quality of life improvements to help with points. So I kept on adding these. So the main structure is still just an X and Y. We haven't added anything else in yet. I don't know if I need to ever. I might someday, but when I implement the point, that's no difference. But I added this get GG-easy point 2. So this is going to get the actual point you get from GG-easy. So I just call this a G point, which itself is a renamed point 2. So use GG-easy graphics point 2 as G point 2. I did that only to make it a little bit easier to sort of remember. And then it's pretty simple. Just create a new one from this. G point, yeah. Okay, so then we did the add assign before and set that, but I added a clone so I can actually just clone it. So this just creates a new point and sort of sets that up. I also set up a partial equal so I can test 2 points to see if they're equal to each other in the tests. So I didn't have to use 2 lines to test, like, the X and Y values. I could just use a single line. And so that's here with a partial equal. And then I have all my, I've been doing test-driven development and these two. So new point. I actually no longer need, I haven't been touching these points and updating them again. So I guess I could create another point and do them, but this is probably a little bit more correct to not use the other features in new point. Add assign, it's the same thing. Okay, add assign that, and then get GG-easy point 2. I guess I forgot to do ones for clone and partial equal, so I could actually write those pretty quickly right here. So we'll call this just clone, and so that point 1 equals, and there's going to be a new point new with 1.0, 2.0. Let cloned point equals point 1 dot clone. And then my asserts are going to be basically that they are the same. I'm not testing. I guess I could test the partial equal, and I'll have another one for partial equal. So assert equal, and it'll be point 1 is essentially the same as cloned point. So there is that. And then we'll have function test, and this will be check if, I guess partial equal is what it is. Partial equal, let point 1 equals point new 1.0, 2.0. We want to do pretty much exactly the same thing, except I'm not going to clone it. I'm just going to make this point 2, and they're going to be the same. And now assert equal. I'm going to do these. So partial equals, so we want to assert that, I guess this won't be, if I just run this on its own, I want it to be true. So 0.1, I think I could just do 0.1 is equal to 0.2 like that. And that will work. So as long as this works, then we're good. So if I switch back over and we'll run cargo test, and this should do it. Yep, and we got all of our new point things inside of here. So by the end, we're going to have tons of tests with this, which is kind of good, kind of what we're looking for. We've got our grid and we've got everything else. So I think we're moving forward at a nice, slow but steady pace. So with that, let's go ahead and send this on up. So creating a grid that will be used for movement. And I'll send this up there. Let's go look at GitHub, and then I'll post a link to all this code there. And then that will be it for the morning. It's finally starting to move up in the ranks here. It's nice. All right, so opening that up, and here is a link to the code. Feel free to take a look. And if you have any questions or anything else, I'm also putting these up on YouTube. You can, I guess you could also just set, like, you could put issues on if you have questions about what you're seeing or what's going on or what my plan really is. I kind of have a plan in the README, but I'm not fully following it right now due to advice that I got from some other game developers, so I may want to go and change that. And with that, I'm going to go get ready for the rest of my day, and I hope that you all have a great rest of yours. And I'll see you all tomorrow morning at same time, 6:30 a.m. Mountain Time. Oh, I realized it would have been helpful had I actually put the transition over. That's the transition that I want. All right, bye for real now, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow.